Hello, my beautiful ducklings. It's your friendly Cruppeteer, and I'm back again with another Steven Universe vlog for what seems like the first time in a billion years, but it's really been maybe barely 2 months since friendship. The last episode. So first of all, before I even start the vlog, for those who don't know about the Cartoons vs. Cancer live stream I'm doing on my channel, I don't really have a schedule for when I do them, just every here and there. I have a new show on my channel where I ask all kinds of cartoon creators to come on my show and do a little live stream with me to help me raise money for children with cancer, specifically a good friend of mine, Madeline Carlson. If you've ever seen The Book of Life or L.T. Gray, the creator and director of both, Jorge Gutierrez, was on my show last month. And this month, September 20th at 6 o'clock, you can join me and John Dilworth, the creator of Courage the Cowardly Dog, for a fun live stream full of probably complete nonsense. But that's just a shameless plug for a completely great cause, but that's beside the point. Today's episode is Nightmare Fuel. I mean Nightmare Hospital, but it is Nightmare Fuel. And I'll just tell you now, this is a very well-made episode, but I'll get to that at the end, of course. So, Connie and Steven just came back from, in lack of a better or more appropriate sounding word, sword fighting with each other. And Connie doesn't really have the time to sword fight at her. This is weird. Connie doesn't have the time to practice her sword fighting at home because she doesn't have a sword at her house. Of course, no one really has a sword hanging around their house, unless you do. I don't know. I'm not you. Jeez. So Steven says that she can borrow Rose's sword, and so Connie gives it to her, but then Connie's mom, whose name escapes me, I think it's Dr. Marchachez? I'm just gonna call her Connie's mom. So Connie's mom comes home, and Steven and Connie have to hide the sword, so they hide it as a coat rack. It doesn't really work very well, because when Connie's mom finds the sword, she's very, very mad, and, she's just very disappointed in Connie that Connie would go behind her back and do something as crazy as sword fighting. So, meanwhile, Connie's mom has a very important matter to deal with at the hospital, because she's a doctor, for those who forget all the time she says she's a doctor. And so, she leaves for the hospital, but there's no way that Steven and Connie can pretty much leave without having one of the most important elements of the show, being Rose's sword. So they go to the hospital to find her, but it turns out that today's been a pretty heavy day for Connie's mom because there's this, crazy new patient who's just driving her up the wall, and it turns out that the new patient, well, there's two of them. One of them is I don't know what the other one is. They don't describe what the other one is. He's just kind of like randomly there. But the patient that Connie's mom is checking on is in the room, all sick and kicking around. So when Connie's mom leaves, Steven and Connie go in to grab the sword. But while they're in there, they find out that the patient that Connie's mom was attending isn't even a patient at all. It's one of the gem clusters that Peridot made down in the kindergarten. One of those horrible, disgusting fusions we saw in Keeping It Together. And there's two of them. There's one in the room that Connie and Steven are now locked in. Or not locked in, but stuck in. And there's one outside banging on the door trying to get in. And it's just... It's such... I won't be Mr. Well, I predicted it. But, you can kind of tell at the beginning when... Like in cartoon shows, kind of when anything is, or in any form of cinema, when something is kind of concealed from the audience that would usually not be extra precautionally, not shown to the audience. It's kind of obvious that this is something shocking. It's hey Billy, how's your face? But you don't and it's just the back of him, and then he turns around and he has no face or something. One of those oh, that's kind of cheap, but It's a tactic, I guess. I mean, what are you supposed to be just walk up to a guy that gets rid of the surprise element? So I kind of suspected that the gem cluster was underneath, especially since Steven mentioned it earlier in the episode. So the gem cluster is, destroying, trying to destroy Steven and Connie, and the gem cluster outside is trying to do the same. Connie's mom is here now, by the way. So they run out. They're running through the hospital. Straight out of, something literally straight out of a horror game, is what's going on here. So they bubble them, so Steven bubbles everybody together, and Connie's mom still won't let Connie use the sword because, you know, she doesn't think it's safe. She doesn't think Connie knows how to use it, which, of course, Connie does know how to use it. She's been taking sword fighting lessons from Pearl for several weeks now. So, when... We just lost my train of thought. Yes, so when she takes the sword, she slashes up all the enemies, and her and Steven work together to, you know, destroy the clusters. Connie's mom is a lot more forgiving and understanding, and there's even a little lesson in there about how Connie's mom only wants the best for Connie, and that's why she's a control freak, if you will. I'm not going to say Tiger Mom because that could be offensive, and I'm not for that life. So as I said at the beginning of the vlog, if you've been watching my vlogs for a while, which you should be because hey, you know, I'm not going to brag or anything, but I was the first person to start doing vlogs on YouTube about Griffith Studios. Channel awesome, what's that? But if you've been watching my vlogs for a while, you can tell that one of the things that really makes an episode, for me at least, and probably for, you know, a lot of other people, just a good episode in general, is a really good sense of atmosphere. And it seems like whenever the gem clusters are in an episode, or at least the two they've been in so far, the atmosphere is very, very, like, horrible and unsettling. Like a good, you know, like a good atmosphere can bring a good vibe, but like a scary, tense atmosphere is even more, like, is even better for, you know, like, keeping the audience invested. And that really, like, I'll be the first to admit, I was like on the edge of my seat, waiting to see, like, because I knew it was the cluster still, but there's, like, the scene where they flash the light on the cluster walking down the hallway, and, like, the little thing gleams, and you're like, oh, crap, and you know they're real. They mean it. And like, you're, like, on the edge of your seat thinking, you know, how's this gonna go out? Because kind of, obviously, to some people, Connie's mom are just gonna, you know, talk it up in the end. But for a while there, she's not budging at all. Like, even in the most intense situation, she's trying to be a mom and not, like, well, in lack of a better word, and not, like, trying to bring sense into the situation going on. So, there's some moments there when you're like, how long is 7 minutes, 8 minutes in, and she hasn't done the sword yet? Is this gonna be like a cliffhanger episode? That's what I was thinking, at least. And another thing I'd like to mention, I can't recall the episode they did this in, but one of the notable examples I can think of off the top of my head is Chilletide, or Chilletid, or Chilletide, as everybody likes to call it, but I like to call it Chilletide because I'm a cool cat. In Chilletide and in Jailbreak, specifically when I talk about Jailbreak, I talk about the giant master hand ship when I'm using this example. The use of aquamarine and, like, a light green sorta is used a lot in those two episodes that I just mentioned very well, but I think it's used incredibly well in this episode for the atmosphere of the hospital. It's not meant to be, like, it's the hospital at night. The hospital's already a pretty scary place. I mean, if you're there, you're probably not there for a good reason, are you? No. Well, you know, if you're in the hospital, not like visiting or something. Or even if you are visiting, you're probably visiting someone who's horribly sick or something. I mean, there's really no real good reason to be at a hospital unless you're like one of those Make-A-Wish people and you're there to, like, you know, brighten up some kid's day. Besides that, really, what good reason would you have to go to a hospital? It's not like you just walk. I'm not even gonna go there. So they do a really good job capturing the mood, the intensity that hospitals already have, the kind of uncertainty that everybody in a hospital already has. That uncertainty mixed with the uncertainty of Connie's mom, mixed with the uncertainty of, you know, Steven and Connie about, are they going to get the sword? Are they going to get out of here? What are the gem clusters doing here? How did Connie's mom not pull back the covers and realize the creature didn't have a head, and why didn't she just at that moment say, wait a minute, this thing has like 20 arms, why is it, what? That was the one thing that ticked me off in this episode. She, like, pulls back the covers, she's like, eh. She just, like, puts it back. If I saw that, I'd be like, oh, I'd like, just run out of the room, get rid of, like, call 911, be like, yeah, there's a creature that's, like, there's a big Cronenberg in here, and they just come in and probably take it away. But that's just a what-if scenario, of course. So, where was I? Yeah, so the atmosphere, especially the coloring in this episode, is very, very well done. It's not a whole bunch of colors. Like, it's not the it's not really the bright, colorful tone that we've seen in other episodes, but it's not really the lots of color tone we've seen in the other episodes. That's also like toned down to make the atmosphere more strange. Like in So Many Birthdays, for example, there's a lot of colors used in the final scene where Steven's, dying per se. There's not a lot of colors used in this scene, and I think that as much as I love So Many Birthdays, or Too Many Birthdays, whatever you want to call it, I think this one works a lot better on the spectrum of like feeling, really capturing that feeling of like the feeling of dark, the feeling of depth, and the nightmares in the hospital. Is really what I was thinking of. Because this episode really is pretty much a nightmare. If you think about it, it's set up like, okay, in lack of a better term, like a Five Nights at Freddy's or something. I hate to use that comparison to Steven Universe, but you know what? When drastic measures are taken, drastic comparisons are made, and there you have it. That's the Grumpet Studios guarantee. But so yeah, if you haven't heard me drill it into the ground the last few minutes, the coloring on this episode was very keen. The only thing I have a problem about, and this isn't really an episode thing, but in the at least in the Wikipedia and TV guide listing for this episode, it said that Pearl was gonna come in and like help take the sword out of the hospital. I don't know if that was just a mess up by the TV guide, or maybe like Steven Universe crew submitted that synopsis and then we're like, oh, we can just change it to Connie and Steven, or maybe they replaced Connie's mom with maybe they replaced Pearl with Connie's mom because they probably would have the same feeling, I guess. I don't know, because you know how personal Pearl feels about Rose's sword and all that junk, all that conspiracy stuff that everybody wants me to make videos about, but I'm still indifferent. Overall, just a really good episode, really good voice acting on Connie's mom's part. I don't know who does it, but just overall really good voice acting on that. I can't really think of too many, like, that I haven't already said. The whole pulls the sheet back, that kind of ticked me off. I can't really think of anything else really that I can say negatively or positively about this episode. Just an overall really good episode, and I'm happy to have Steven Universe back. It's been a while, and it was well worth the wait if this is the episode that we're going to start off on, because this episode, stuff's getting real in Steven Universe. So I hope to be there with you when it does. So I will see you guys later. Come join me September 20th. It's next Sunday for John Dilworth. He's a cool guy. He's a completely ridiculous guy, but I'm a completely ridiculous guy. So we're going to be ridiculous together. So be there, be square, and I will see you guys later. Subscribe, or thumbs up, or don't. What do you think, you're a rebel? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not you.